Hello, Tech Pros, episode 219.
Once you find a good productivity app, spend a week with it, explore the features. If you don't feel comfortable after that week, do explore other ones.
Welcome to the podcast where I chat with professionals who are getting the job done using technology 7 days a week. Each week, we start with Motivation Monday. Tuesday is about productivity, Wednesday, leadership, Thursday, technology, Friday, people and communication, Saturday, entrepreneurship, and Sunday, being unplugged. All right, let's get started. Hello, Tech Pros. This is Chad Bostic, and I'm excited to introduce our featured guest today, Francesco D'Alessio. Happy Tuesday, Francesco.
Happy Tuesday, Chad.
Did I pronunciate it? Did I pronounce it correctly?
You nailed it.
I nailed it. I can't speak in general, but I practiced your name like 32 times. So I'm happy I got it right. Happy Tuesday. Francesco D'Alessio is a 22-year-old tech lover who creates videos for his technology channel covering app, software, and product reviews. He also works for two tech startups called FlashSticks and Newton Mail. Francesco loves reviewing productivity apps and features and has spent the last 3 years trying to find the best productivity apps for everyday usage. So I love this bio, Francesco, because, man, you're all about getting so much done. Why, first of all, before we get into all the productivity apps that you review and your YouTube channel, why are you working at two different startups at the same time?
That sort of came organically. It didn't really happen in that way. I'm still pretty young, so I've still got a long way in my journey. So I started at FlashSticks about 2 years ago now, and that was my placement year because I'm still at university. Okay. And I basically came back from my placement, and after reviewing stuff, I work part-time at FlashSticks and part-time at Newton, and it gives me the growth that I need. So I learn a lot every day. I get to actively work in the businesses for my full day, and then obviously I've got two part-time jobs, which is great. So that's how it came about. I mean, I'm all about sort of trying to grow and learn as much as I can, really.
I love the idea of multiple jobs coming, especially when you're coming right out of college or finishing your university years, getting different perspectives from different companies, right? Because you maybe have slightly different cultures, you maybe have slightly different products that you're working on, different job roles, responsibilities, people that you're working with. And it's kind of like dating different companies and like, hey, what do I like? What do I not like, right?
Yeah, definitely. And I'm trying to test the water on exactly that, what I don't like and what I do like. And there's no better way of doing it. And I'm really not passionate about my course that I'm on. But the thing that university gives me is that security to do some things while I'm there, so that I am actively working out what I do and what I don't want to do. But I really love my time at FlashSticks and Newton. So that's really enjoyable.
I hear you, man. I'm 42 years old. I'm still trying to figure out what I want to be when I grow up, if I want to grow up. I think I'm just going to not grow up. I think that's the plan. That's what I'm going towards. So real quickly, before we get into the productivity stuff, what is FlashSticks and Newton Mail, and what are you doing for those guys?
Yeah, so FlashSticks is a set of language resources. So we have two main products. We have the language Post-it notes, which are color-coded, pre-printed Post-it notes, and you stick them all across your walls and around the room to help you memorize language vocabulary, so French, nice. Spanish. So it's quite a cool way of learning. And then we also have an app called Flash Academy, and that's basically like very similar to Duolingo, but it combines lessons and games and all things like that. So it's a really interactive way of learning on iOS and Android. And then at Newton, we have an email subscription service, which is a really impressive tool for anyone looking to really go deeper on their email experience. So inside of Newton, you've got things like read receipts, send later, undo send, which is an amazing feature, and lots more sort of features like that allow people to enhance their email activity every day. So we've got lots going on there and lots more to look forward to in the future.
So I got a quick question for you, and this is because of some of the UX conversations that we've had with other guests on other episodes. about why are we still using kind of outdated terminology for digital age, right? So the example that I brought up back in, I'm going to have to look up what episode that was because I can't remember what episode. But I said, you know what, an email, right? The millennials coming in, or my daughter who's now 7 and growing up, and I don't know if she'll have email or not, in the near distant future. But if she clicks on the CC button, what is that? That's carbon copy. What does that mean? Well, it means you're going to send it to somebody else. But what does that mean? What is CC? What is carbon copy? And we have these user experience things, right? And kind of tying it back to productivity that doesn't make any sense when you first sit down and think about it. When you look at it from a brand new user who has never seen email before, if there's anybody out there who has never seen email before, right? They're sitting down, they're looking at it, and they go, okay, how do I get this thing to work? What am I trying to do? My objectives are, I want to send an email. I want to send it to multiple people. And what's the difference between the CC, the BCC? Does that make any sense to you? I mean, looking at it from a productivity standpoint, I know what you mean.
It's the same sort of thing in productivity. There's this concept of GTD, which is by David Allen. You've probably heard of it multiple times. It's basically, the term stands for getting things done. And sometimes you're introduced to those sort of terms in a new industry that you haven't necessarily engaged with before. It's quite daunting. I guess sort of trying to know the terms best you can is the only thing you can do, isn't it?
I guess so. We always called it GSD, getting stuff done. So why are you so passionate about productivity? So you got a YouTube channel, and right before the episode, right before we started recording, you asked me a little bit about my history, and I gave you my background with, software development and social anxiety and kicking off the podcast and what I'm doing with it. So what brought you to come to the decision that you wanted to create, a series of videos and review different apps and different websites and so forth, and specifically the channel or the niche within all of the episodes that you do on productivity?
Yeah, sure. That's a good question, Chad. So when I started, I think I was about 16, and I was doing my year 12 exams, and basically I came out at the end of the year and I failed them all. I had these things called they're called U's in the UK, which means ungradable. Wow. So I was hit with this really interesting dilemma that I wasn't good academically, and I thought, oh no, what's going to happen now? So I spent the summer, and I was able to retake, which was fantastic. I spent the summer basically researching all of the productivity apps out there, and I got so embedded in all of these applications. I really enjoyed the user interfaces, the experiences, the way they made me feel, the way that I got more things done with them. So I sort of started using them actively for 2 years, and I was able to do a lot more. And, as using productivity tools, they work with how much you put in. So I was able to really do the academic side and then actively do other stuff. And as a student, that is really great. But the one thing that I did was I sort of got really, I'm interested in tech anyway, but I got really interested in the details of the productivity apps. So everything from project folders to notebooks and all the nerdy stuff in between. And I thought, when I was showing them to other people and I saw their reaction to them using it, I was like, oh my God, why doesn't everyone have these? And why can't they actively use them in a way that's useful? So I sort of started the channel in an effort to sort of show the best productivity tools out there. And what I did as well is I sort of tried to combine it so that there was an ability for anyone to come in and discover new apps, good productivity apps. And then 2, for those who had those productivity apps, that they could go deeper into that experience so that they obviously had better outcomes and better productivity from it. So that's sort of where that came from. And obviously, I'm an active user of them all. So I continually try and improve the videos every day. And that's really where the channel came from.
So what I love about that story, Francesco, is, when I hear other people, not yourself, but other people talk about productivity, specifically talk about productivity apps, I hear things like, oh, I need an app that will let me get more done. I need an app that will let me get organized. I need an app that will whatever, right? And so I think there's people out there. There are users of productivity apps who just want to click a button and it just solve all the problems for them, right? But what they're not doing in many cases, unfortunately, is like really digesting the problem that they have, breaking it down into a series of steps, and then determine what's the process, what's the workflow. Now, how do I optimize that process? How do I optimize that workflow? And I love what you said about, not just here are the really cool apps and here's what they do, but actually show people how you use them, right? Because to me, that's what it's all about. It's if you want to be productive, if you want to teach people how to be productive, it's really show them what's the benefit they're going to get out of it. What are the steps that they need to do? Not just have the app on the phone and then, I don't know, put some data in there, but really like align it to the processes that they're integrating into their personal life or to their business.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with that 100%. And there are so many people out there that buy diaries or calendars or even, gym passes and then think they are, productive or healthy just because they have that. And it is really how you use the tools. Obviously, there is that stigma of becoming obsessed with productivity tools. And that's, I do see this a lot. I see people change productivity apps like every month in an effort to improve themselves, but they sort of get a bit too obsessed with that getting the latest thing or chopping and changing, and that can be unproductive in itself. It's a natural thing.
Yeah, absolutely. When you think of like in a factory floor, like Kanban methods and stuff like that, where you're optimizing the factory and you're consistently reiterating on it, or in software development, we use some of the same terminology. Constantly looking for betterments, right? But there's a point in time where if you as an individual are constantly looking for new ways of bettering your process, but you've got a really, really good process, how much time are you investing in changing the process, and how much time should you just be like using your process to be very productive?
Yeah, that's it. And that's one of the things that I'm touching on in the channel in the videos is the methodology around the productivity apps, because that's still a real thing as well.
Cool, man. So what kind of apps are you looking at? So productivity is a big phrase, right? It's a big umbrella, a lot of different apps underneath there. Do you have like certain categories that you spend more time on or that you really get passionate about, or do you just kind of cover them all?
What I try and do is I try and cover the major ones, and the reason I do that is because they're the sort of apps that have good amounts of longevity. So they're going to be around for 2 or 3 years, where you can actually create a base on. It's very similar to if you were to start on a new social network, putting the time and effort into it, and then it being shut down in a month. That's like methodology. So I try and cover the biggest ones because obviously they go and have the biggest amount of features. But then I also try and bring up the best in the discovery sector. So bringing some new productivity apps to the table that not many people know, but that have potential to be really big. So I sort of try and cover the sort of the best of the breed. The ones I cover mainly are Todoist, things like Evernote, Trello, Google Calendar, and some of the other calendar applications. But the way I categorize them is task management apps, and then information apps and calendar apps. So inside of task management is obviously your to-do lists. Inside of information is anything that captures information, things like document creation, note-taking. And then calendar is obviously for events and activities. So that's how I sort of try and break it down as simply as possible.
And then within those categories, the calendar, task management, information, do you see that some of them are specifically for like individual use, right, as opposed to teams or families of people?
Sorry, say that one again?
Okay, so some of these apps, are you looking to like do a review of here's all the best of the best to make you more productive, or the best calendar apps, the best task management apps for you as an individual? Like, here's the best app for Chad, here's the best app for Francisco, or here's the best apps like if we're going to work together as a team. So here's the best calendar sharing apps and information sharing and so forth.
Yeah, sure. So what I do on the channel is I review apps in detail as they come out. So So, for example, Evernote, I'll do a deep one on Evernote, and Todoist, I'll do a deep one on that. And then what I'll do is obviously do the advanced videos, which are feature specific. But the thing that I try and do is if someone uses the comments or emails me, then I try and understand what their situation is, and I try and like predict what app would be good for them. Because, for example, you're going to get a different situation if you're in a 3-person team or a 4-person team to a student who's working at university. So you're going to have different scenarios. So you're going to need a different set of tools. So at the moment, I'm doing that quite ad hoc. And that's why I mentioned some of the methodology stuff that I'll be doing on the channel is I'll be obviously trying to share the top apps for ... and share the top apps, top processes for ... So it's an evolution as I go across it.
Cool, fantastic. The reason I brought that up is because there's a lot of technical professionals out there that are listening to this, and I think from a personal perspective, we kind of all have our favorites, like I like this or like that. But I really want to dive into some of your favorites, some of the best features, the best apps that have features for teams. So let's maybe start with task management. What are the best task management apps or programs or websites that you've seen that really help teams be more productive?
Yeah, sure. So for teams, I would say that Todoist is one of the best ones out there. Todoist is a really simple task management application, but it has a lot of features under its belt. So as a team, you can actually get set up on Todoist. There's a business version or there's a personal version and a premium version too. But for anyone starting out, I'd recommend the free version to get them kicked off because, with most productivity apps, you've got to give them a week or so to see if you're suited to it. But with that, the features that are really good for teams inside of Todoist are unlimited sharing for adding. When you add someone to a project, you can then assign and delegate tasks to them. Comments as well. Comments is a really great feature for anyone in a team. They can add a comment thread, very similar to what Slack has, but you can add audio, you can add images and text as well, which is nice. And then the final feature is the ability to obviously assign and organize due dates, which is great. So any team can organize their project and have that going, have the due dates there, and have it all planned out on their own timeline, on their personal Todoists. So it's a really nice experience. And the good thing is it's very open and you can actually customize it quite a lot.
Nice. Sounds awesome. Is that the application of choice that you guys use at both FlashSticks and Newton Mail?
No.
Isn't that always the case? Like everybody I talk to about productivity is like, what's your favorite productivity app? And they say, oh, XYZ. I say, great. Do you use it at work? No, we don't. We use something else. So why not? Why don't you guys use it at FlashSticks or Newton Mail? Somebody else already picked the tech stack before you got there?
No, so we do. So we do use a couple of good productivity apps at FlashSticks, for example. I've been there much longer. I've only been at Newton for about a month and a half now.
Okay.
So at Newton we use Trello, and obviously Newton. And then at FlashSticks we use Slack, and we combine Todoist as well. So we do use Todoist for certain projects as a team, and we have experimented with Asana in the past, but with both of those, we're a very small startup, so it's trying to coordinate that efficiently, and especially as a remote worker, that makes it a little more confusing sometimes.
I understand. There's so many apps, there's so many different integrations. It can all the plumbing between them can get absolutely hairy. So I'm a Slack user. I have my own Slack channel here at if you go to hellotechpros.com/Slack, you can join my channel. And I know there's a lot of my audience members who are either members of their organization Slack channel or they have their own. I know there's a lot of other podcasters that listen to this show that have their own, and other productivity folks that have their own. So maybe you could give us some like really awesome Slack tips. Like what are better ways to use Slack other than just install it out of the box or sign on out of the box and just start chatting with people?
Yeah, sure. In terms of, I'd say just going back to that, I think it's definitely the methodology of the
Mm-hmm.
company, dependent on what task management apps because you use. Because obviously, when I started at FlashSticks, we didn't use Slack, and that really dramatically improved our service. But in terms of Slack, I would say there are a couple of things that I would mention. So when you're actually doing direct messages or you're in a channel, try typing in with a slash, and some of the commands will come up. And there's a couple of commands that are quite useful. I'd recommend slash remind because you can actually set reminders for team members or yourself as you're going across your day, which is quite nice. So you can actually set specific times and they'll pop up in your Slack bot. There's also an integration called Work Life Meeting Assistant, which is a really good direct message assistant. So all you do is you type in on Google Work Life Meeting Assistant, and then you can integrate it with Slack. And every morning, it messages you because it links with your Google Calendar or your iCal. It will message you your entire agenda for the day, and then you can create agenda items for each of those specific things, which is quite nice. Um, and then I would say there's also the ability to go to preferences as well. Um, I'd change some of the sidebar themes, some of the messages in media, and some of the notifications there as well, because it just makes Slack a bit more personal. That's what the great thing about Slack is. So there are a few little Slack hacks there.
I love it because I have literally I'm looking at it now. I've pulled up my Slack channel and there's nothing. It's like empty. I mean, there's conversation back and forth, but I am not using Slack for all the things that I think other people are using it for, and I feel like I'm missing out. Like, it's such a huge tool, and there's so many different thousands of integrations to Slack, and I feel like a noob because I've got just like the basic. And I haven't really done anything with it to customize it. So tell you what, Francesco, when we come back from our break, you can give me like a Slack 101 on what I need to do to get my Slack channel like up to at least off of newbie level and into like intermediate level. But first, we'll take a quick break and thank our sponsors. This episode of Hello Tech Pros is sponsored by Minio Cloud Storage. Minio is a cloud object storage server for developers and DevOps written in Go. The Go programming language is the emerging language of choice for modern cloud infrastructure projects, and it allows Minio to be highly concurrent and lightweight. Minio is Amazon S3 compatible, built with microstorage architecture in mind, but at its heart, Minio is simple, scalable, and supported by a passionate developer and user community. In episode 89 of Hello Tech Pros, I talked with A.B. Periasamy, one of the founders of Minio, about the importance of community support and recruiting software developers who are as passionate about their product's code as artists are of their art. Check out that episode at hellotechpros.com/89 and check out Minio Cloud Storage at minio.io. That's minio.io. Are you new to podcasting? Are you looking for a fast, high-quality, yet budget-friendly podcast production team? Let TransSource Media take care of you. With a team of professional audio and video editors, writers, and graphic artists, they can help you build your podcast from planning, post-production, and platform submission. Using only cutting-edge software and studio equipment, they're here to make each and every show sound at its best. To get a free quote, please visit www.transsourcemedia.com or send them an email at marketing@transsourcemedia.com or call them at 209-505-5693. TransSource Media, transforming businesses through the power of multimedia. Okay, we're back with Francesco D'Alessio. Francesco is a tech lover who loves productivity, and he does a YouTube channel with a lot of different app reviews, not just productivity apps, but other apps as well. But we're specifically talking about productivity apps here on Productivity Tuesday today. The apps that will GTD or GSD, depending on if you're a little clean or a little dirty worded, getting stuff done kind of apps. And I just had a moment of reflection on my Slack channel right before the break and discovered that, you know what, my installation is like bare bones, out of the box. I'm not interacting with the Slack bot. Like, I have no integrations. Like, I'm not doing anything with it, dude. So, like, what can I do to really bump up my Slack game?
Yeah, sure. And just to add on a couple of those points, so what you can do is integrate things like Trello and Todoist. Once you've got those integrated, you can actually start adding certain cards to your board straight away, which is quite nice. So all you have to do there, and I'll send you the notes after this, is just go onto the Trello Slack integration on the Slack App Store, and then just to combine those two. And once you're inside of Slack, you just need to use the command for slash, and then you can find out all the Trello information there. And what you can do, there's also a help setting there. So if you want any tips and tricks, that's how you do it. The way that you can find the Slack App Store and actually start experimenting with a few of those apps is just by typing /apps, and then you can use the search term there, or there's an actual link to the directory, which is quite nice. And then the directory will give you all of the cool stuff you can do. There's really like tons of stuff. Some of the ones there already have buttons installed. So for example, in Trello, it will sort of look like you're in Trello, but while you're on Slack as well, because it's integrated so well. But there are a couple of other ones, and there are some quite funny ones as well. So you can have like HR bots and like bots that send you quotes and bots that send you all sorts. Really, really, if you go
now, honestly, are all these bots designed to increase our productivity or to derail our productivity?
Well, I mean, some of them are good. I mean, there's a couple I use. Occasionally, I use an app on Slack called Icebreakers, which actually organizes learn fun facts about your work colleagues, which is cool. There's another one called Nuzzle, which sends you news alerts as well to any of your Slack channels, which is quite nice, especially if you're in a team and you're looking at competitors' work. So you're always trying to keep on top of what they're doing. It will send you a report on that as it comes in. And there are a couple other ones that integrate with to-do lists as well, which are quite nice. There's even a default one. But yeah, I mean, if you go on there, there's like loads. But what I'd also recommend to do is, if you don't have Product Hunt yet, download or go on producthunt.com and just go on some of the Slack applications that people are posting there. There are some really great ones, and you'll have a lot of fun, especially if there's some good productivity apps there.
if there are. Yeah, my first usage of Slack was a couple of years ago. Went into a startup, and they're like, okay, install this and get this, and as soon as I turned it on, it was like Giphy overload, right? There's like animated GIFs on top of animated GIFs. Like the entire conversations where somebody posted an animated GIF and somebody would post a reply to that was a reference to a different movie or a different TV show or whatever. And it's just like, I maybe I'm old, I don't know, but I could not follow the conversation other than, oh, that's from Friends and that's from Star Wars and that's from something I don't know what that is, and it's just a bunch of movement so I'm closing out. I'm closing all of those tabs, and I'm closing out of those. I'm signing out of those channels, and then come to find out they were actually talking about real business stuff in there as well. But I missed it because the Slack channel there were too many animated GIFs, and I didn't like that. I almost went into an epileptic seizure. So I was like, you know what, I gotta sign out of this Slack channel.
That's it, and they've actually started working on improving that experience. So they've actually got better snooze features. So there's that little bell in the top left-hand corner that you can actually snooze stuff. So if there's like a bombardment of irrelevant conversations, you can tweak that. And they've got a your notification preferences, which allows you to go a bit deeper. But they've actually introduced this feature called all unreads the other week. And basically, if you click that, you can see all of the unread messages across all of your channels just in one feed. So it saves you tons of time.
Wow, that's kind of interesting. I don't know that I'm subscribed to a lot of different feeds, so that would be a lot of stuff to catch up on. I think one of the tips just from my usage is be careful, and not just in Slack, right? But Slack and email lists and Twitters and everything else that you can think of. It's like I tend to subscribe to too many channels just across the board, which can be a productivity killer for me, because then like I'm getting a bazillion notifications all day long, and it's taking my attention away from whatever it is I'm supposed to be doing. And then when I go in and I check it, it's just a bunch of random noise of junk that it's not really adding. It might be funny, or it might be educational, or it might be interesting, but it's not helping me, right? And so just for me, it's like, okay, sign out of all of the Slack channels that I'm not actively participating in, and is not going to like change my life or change my business if I miss something or see something.
Yeah, I agree with you there. It's sort of like you have to dip in when it's relevant and dip out when it's not. Sort of notification overload.
Cool. So before we go, real quick, you are a video producer, right? And I'm a podcast producer, and I told you a little bit about the production of my show before we got started. So quickly, if there's anybody out there who is publishing videos or recording videos, editing videos, do you have any productivity tips for them on how to make their workflow of their video production faster, easier, better?
Yeah, so for those who are going to add me on YouTube, they'll notice that my videos are still very ad hoc. I'm still learning about video production. I always will be, but I'm still quite new to it, I'd say. The one thing I'd recommend is for anyone looking to start their own channel or anything like that, just be consistent, because the one thing that I did when I started out is I only started with a couple of videos. Then what I did is I made sure I uploaded almost 2 a week for about a year and a half. That consistency pays off. Like I would say to anyone that's starting out, if you're going to do it, be consistent, and it just persevere when it looks like you're not doing well. Like I think I made something like 100 videos before I hit 500, and then it got to something like 200 solid ones, and then I got to 2,000 or something. So it's really steady, but it's worth paying off. And I read a report the other day, which is good. There's going to be a lot of new internet users, something like 1.5 billion more internet users being added in the next 5 years or something like that. I can send over that information sheet, but basically that's going to add a lot more people to the internet that are looking for great resources out there. So, persevere, because people might be thinking it's too late for things like YouTube or Vimeo, whatever you're going to be using, but it's really not. There's always a niche. Start out with a niche and grow into something bigger.
Fantastic. Couldn't have said it better myself. Everything that Francesco just said is equally applies to podcasting as well. If you want to get into that medium, like the best time to do it was yesterday. The second best time is today. Francesco, before we go, do you have any final words of wisdom for our audience, and then share the best way that we can connect with you, and then we'll say goodbye?
Yeah, sure. So I think the best words and wisdom from me are, once you find a good productivity app, spend a week with it, explore all the features. If you don't feel comfortable after that week, do explore other ones. If you do feel comfortable, then use the application as you would, and just tweak your experience every month. So look at the way you're using it, see the ways you're negatively using it, and just tweak and change. Don't necessarily have to completely revamp the app. That's all I suggest. And then finally, the ways to find me would be if you go on YouTube, and I'll send you the link, but it's CESIDALESSIO as my YouTube channel name. But you can find me on Twitter at Francesco D_ALES. But no, it's been an absolute honor to be on this podcast. So I really do appreciate being on here.
You bet. We're going to have all of that linked up in the show notes. So listeners, if you missed all of those links, you can go to hellotechpros.com/219. This is episode 219. Go to hellotechpros.com/219. Get the links to Francesco's YouTube channel, as well as all the ways to connect with him and some of the other resources and apps that we've talked about today. Francesco, thank you so much for joining me on Hello Tech Pros today. I really value in-depth tips on how to use certain apps because, dude, there's a bazillion apps out there today and more coming online every day. And like you said, some are big and they're gonna be around forever, and some are small and they might be here for an hour. They might be here for 10 years. You never know. But it's nice to know that there's somebody out there taking a look at it for us. So I don't have to do all the research myself. From now on, when I want an app, a productivity app, I'm going to go to your channel, check it out, and get your recommendations first so I don't waste a bunch of time. So thanks for coming on and talking to us today.
Yeah, sure. And any of your users can drop me a line on my email. I'll send it over to you, and they can I can suggest some productivity apps anytime. So just let me know.
Fantastic.
Great,
Tech Bros, if you are if you're trying to be more productive in a team, listen, we've talked a lot about apps today, but one of the things that we haven't talked a lot about today is actually the communication between you and the other individual, between you and many individuals on a team. So I'm coming from my final words of wisdom from a little bit different direction. It's not just about the apps. It's not just about the integration or the process. It's really about discovering the best ways to work together as human beings, like as a group. Like, how can we communicate together? Coming from my perspective as someone who has overcome social anxiety, some of the biggest productivity dips I've had in my career is when I was very anxious about a situation. I was not reacting well to someone being upset, or I was afraid that I was going to really piss off Francesco, and I don't want to piss him off because he's a really nice guy, and what if he's going to think it, right? And then my head explodes, and that's no good for anybody, and so stuff doesn't get done. If you have problems or challenges in this area, both either as an individual or your team is having challenges with communication in this area, that comes down to the anxiety of working with other people in a team. If you go to hellotechpros.com/anxiety, that's hellotechpros.com/anxiety, I'll send you a whole bunch of stories about my personal life and my career and the ways that I've overcome that and been a lot more productive on the job and help teams get a lot more productivity out of what they were doing as well. You've been listening to Francesco D'Alessio, and I'm Chad Bostic. And until next time, take care. The show notes page for this episode can be found at hellotechpros.com/219. Do you use Slack for team communication? Join the Hello Tech Pros Slack channel at hellotechpros.com/Slack. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a review, subscribe to this channel, and check back tomorrow. This has been Productivity Tuesday, but tomorrow my featured guest and I are talking about leadership. Thursday, technology. Friday, people in communication. Saturday, entrepreneurship. Sunday, being unplugged. Monday, motivation. And then we do it all over again next Tuesday for productivity. And I'll talk to you tomorrow.